Okay, good evening, group. We are getting here. It's 40 of us now. Still not everyone, but it's fine. It's okay. Good evening. Let's get this money. Anthony saying, yeah, let's get it, Anthony. Hi, Alexandra. Hello. Добрий вечір. Hi, Kyle. Okay. All the familiar faces, everyone will already know. Hey, Karen, hey, Oksana, hi, Irina. Okay, guys, so everyone here, hello. It's nice to see you. Today is lesson 14. Lesson 14 is also intense. We always have intense classes with you guys. But as you're nearing the completion, we have to make sure everything is very clear and we are addressing everything that you can face at the interview, at the search of jobs, so you don't have things that you possibly don't know or never heard of. So today we are going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about types of testing, because this is something that you need to know either way, because at work, you will not be asked if you know this type of test or you don't. It's assumed that you do. So when you hear something, you need to know what we are talking about. So today we are going to cover this part, and we also will talk about some of the interview questions that also pop up here and there. Of course, they can be different. Maybe you will not see these questions when you go for interview, but some of you guys will, so we will look through them as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, share my screen, and let me know if you see it. You should see it. Okay, good. Perfect. So let's start. So most of the time you will hear the terminology black box, gray box, white box. So what it is, that's basically the methods of testing, and the only difference between them is that at black box, you are testing something that you don't know what's inside. It's a black box for you. You don't have no idea. You're basically testing something that you see. In gray box, you have some knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes, but not really, you're not really testing it that much. And in white box testing, it's actually a full knowledge of the system. So in white box testing, you are testing a lot of things which are not only user related, but they will be related to the system. How the system is performing some tasks, how system, let's say, balances its load, how system reacts on, let's say, overloading or some, some situation where it has to, let's say, restart itself. So all of those things you will be testing if you are doing in, if you are working in white box. However, lots of the time we're really working in gray box, because we do test some of the system components, and we do test a lot of user interface and something that interacts with the user, which doesn't require for us to know what's going on behind the scenes. So really saying that we only have black box or we only have white box will be a little bit misleading. We are working with both most of the time. There are some jobs that will require only black box from you, which means that is only going to be user testing. So something which has to do with the, what user sees. And of course, because user doesn't know how this application is running and what kind of services and microservices we are using, and they don't really care. So that is pure black box test. and we are basically being as a customer. We are just testing as a customer. In white box testing, this is something that you really need to be aware of the layers of the system. You need to know how it works to be able to test it. Now, most of the times in real life, how it happens is that you start with the black box, you join the company, then you move to the gray box because you still test some components of the system. And then eventually, at some point, you can move even more towards white box when you get familiar with the application layers. So that's why I'm saying that is that black box testing it's there, of course, it exists. It's one of the types of the one of the methods. But saying that we are really just in the area of black box, no, we are actually slightly towards the gray box, which is good because it's more interesting. It's more exciting. It's kind of more things you can do. You learn a lot of things, but usually it will not happen overnight. It will happen when you know the system. So it will happen when you actually know how your applications is structured. I would say that we, of course, we all start with black, but we need to grow, and we need to strive to get to know more things that we already know by learning the application layers, microservices, and the architecture. So looking into the gray box components is actually very good for you as a QA engineer. Questions on black box, gray box, or white box? Because you will see this, it's the terminology that is used in job applications, and you might be asked about it. So I want to make sure you're clear. No, okay, good. Okay, then we can keep moving. So, and we spoke about it, I think, at the webinar, even when we were when you guys attended the webinar. Maybe I don't remember who was leading that webinar. It might be me, it might be someone else, but in any case, we mentioned that there is always a functional and non-functional test, and we prioritize functional over non-functional. Why? Because if it's looks good, but it's not really working, there is no point for us to test it, right? I think it was Yuri. Okay, Yuri was. Okay, some webinars I'm present, and some webinars other instructors. Okay, so it was Yuri. Okay, so in any case, what is the functional versus non-functional test? Saying that one is important and another one is not, is going to be wrong. Because if, let's say, it functions well, but it's super not user-friendly, and it's difficult to navigate, and it's looking bad, and it's loading forever, then of course, there is no point of this functionality too, because people will find something similar on the market, and they will pick this product. So both of these main testing types are important. You cannot just concentrate on one and forget about the other one, because they have to be together. Now, functional is basically, it speaks for itself. Functional testing is a type of testing which verifies that each function of the software application operates in conformance with the requirement specification. This testing mainly involves black box testing, and it is not concerned about the source code of the application. So what it says is that it has to be functionally right. It has to do what it's supposed to do, but it's not really, it's not concerned about what's going on behind the scenes. It has to work, because sometimes it will be functional, working fine, but behind the scenes, there will be a mess. And of course, you have to test the behind the scenes too. At some point, we or someone else, but we have to test it. And it's being tested by other teams too, by other QA engineers, by DevOps. So there are people who are testing the system too, but for us, we also have some non-functional tests that we cannot ignore as a QA engineer. So with functional, everything is clear. Functional is functionality test. It has to work. How it has to work, that's non-functional part. So non-functional testing is a type of testing to check non-functional aspects: UI, performance, usability, reliability, etc. of a software application. It is explicitly designed to test the readiness of a system as per non-functional parameters, which are never addressed by functional testing. So basically, let's say the situation where you are testing the application and functionally it's working right, but something weird about it, something that you are feeling like it's not, something is not smooth enough, something is not user-friendly. It takes you forever to figure out how to operate this software. So everything that I listed just now, this goes under non-functional umbrella. And how we test it, we design special cases. We have to test the performance. We have to measure how fast the site loads. We have to make sure that the usability is right and it's actually user-friendly. All of these things we need to address. But we always first test functionality, just making sure that the core is working. And then on the top of it, we are going to work with non-functional tests. Not that I'm saying they are not important. They are important, but the priority for us is to bring functionality first and then make sure that it's running smoothly. So under non-functional tests, we have lots of tests. Under functional tests, we also have lots of tests. But I know that some sites and maybe books or portals, they suggest there's so many tests that people can do. Really, we are not doing them all. We are only concentrating on a few, which we will discuss today. Okay, now let me look at your questions before we move forward. But isn't user interface a functional part? Are using menus on user face? User interface is not really a functional part unless we are talking about something not clickable. Let's say if you cannot click on the button and this button leads to some functionality, then it's not really it's not the UI issue. It's the functional issue. So functional, if something doesn't work, non-functional, it doesn't work right. Okay. Functional is if the main objective of the site is achieved, and the non-functional is how that performance interacts with the rest of the components of the site, right? Yeah, we can call it, we can give this definition. It sounds about right. As long as you understand what it is, because for some people this explanation will be confusing, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, basically what it's doing and how it's doing, how well it's doing. Is Windows 10 user interface? No, Windows 10 is not. Windows 10 is a browser. So if you are testing in some browser related tests, that's going to be performance. It's not going to be functionality. It's going to be performance because it's browser related. Means that in the other browser, the functionality is right. But some particular browser will not work well with the functionality which is actually working correctly. the goal is to make sure the program works properly and does what it's supposed to do. Yes. Non-functional, the goal is to make sure the program is not only good at what it does, but also safe and easy to use. Yeah, that's right. Non-functional is about so how it feels. He put it really well. Yeah. So is GUI non-functional aspect of the testing? Yes, UI it is non-functional unless, as I said, let's say button is not clickable, then you will think it's UI issue, but it's not really. It's the functionality. Button is not clickable, functional and not right. Okay, you will hear about positive, negative, and boundary testing. And I'm sure by now you should know what it is. So give me your suggestion. So I know how well you're aware of those types of testing by now and see what else you need to know about it from me. So we don't waste time if you know everything. Until you write it, I'm just going to give you the definition. So positive testing is the type of testing that can be done by providing the valid data as input. It checks whether an application behaves as expected with positive inputs. So positive is when we give the right data and we expect positive output. Negative testing ensures that your application can gracefully handle invalid input or unexpected user behavior. Negative is very important because most of the time user will make negative cases. They will forget the password, they will type it wrong, they will try something which does not exist. So we never concentrate only on positive. Now, positive is testing between the fields of 9 to 20. Negative is 8 or 21. Boundary testing is testing. Okay, so we got a little bit more far into boundary. Thank you. Let's come back to this. If we make a mistake, what does the site or app do? Yeah, so basically, positive is an ideal world. You give good data, you get everything smooth and clear, and application responds you the same way. That's positive. However, positive is not going to happen all the time, and most of the times it will not happen. So most of the time, we will have to design as much negative testing to replicate the user's experience. And for users, especially the users who don't know the flow, they don't know the requirements, they will do a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are actually the negative testing which you have to predict. So in negative test, you predict what user will do. Will they forget the password? Will they type the incorrect password? Will they type incorrect username? Will they use some invalid characters? Will they try to create an account without username? Will they create an account which is shorter than expected? And then we are actually moving to boundary, because boundary test is actually the test when you're testing the boundary of the input of the system. In boundary testing, you are making sure that if your value, let's say the account, you're creating an account and the username is supposed to be not less than 3 characters long and not more than, let's say, 150, then you will try less than 3 and more than 150. And you expect that it will get rejected. In boundaries, we always have to check the positive checks, which is inside the range, and negative, which is outside the range. So this is the boundary. It's easy because in boundary, you understand there are requirements, and inside of these requirements, let's say the length of the username or password, you have to have that range of numbers, and they are positive. Anything you try will work, but outside of the range will not work, and it's not supposed to work. So all of the things, of course, you would have to test. And it's not only on the creation of the account, it's anything which is data related, because data can have format. And let's say when you create a password, the password supposed to have, let's say, one capital, one special character, one number, all that you would have to test, because if you give the information which is not fitting the requirements, it has to get rejected. So in boundary testing, we basically check that the input that is expected in length and everything, it's actually getting accepted. But if it's not in the range, then it should get rejected. So definition of boundary testing is this. Boundary. This is one of the software testing techniques in which the test cases are designed to include values at the boundary. If the input data is used within the boundary value limits, then it's said to be positive testing. If the input data is picked outside of the boundary value limits, then it's negative testing. For example, user's age allowed to register is 18 to 150 years old. We check 18 and 150 as positive checks because they are inside of the range, and 17 and 151 for negative checks because they're outside of the range. That's how it is. Now, you will ask, how you actually know what the boundaries are? Well, the boundaries are set in the software. So there are requirements for that. If, let's say, you don't see the requirement in your PRD, then you would have to ask because, well, sometimes a company forgets to set it. But that doesn't mean that we'll just keep going with what we have and people will be putting like million of characters or something which doesn't make sense, right? Because data should be correct. If let's say we don't have boundary for the age, people accidentally can type instead of 51 years old, they will type 251. And you understand that, you know, that cannot be right. So to keep the data accurate as much as possible, we allow to set the boundaries. And if, let's say, you want to check the boundary, but it's not in the PRD, then you would have to ask the project management. You have to ask, hey guys, what are the boundary sets? And usually, if they never come up with it, they will come up with it now, since you brought it up, because sometimes they might forget. But if they come up with something, they will just let you know, or they will create some document and share it with you. Okay. Okay, so boundary seems like everyone is clear on this one. So basically, in boundary test is positive check and negative check, and that's for you should be easy to understand, because if you are in range, then it's positive. If you're out of range, it's negative. But why we call it boundary is because you're testing the boundaries of this input. That's pretty much it. Okay. Now, testing types, which are all the time, you can hear about them, you see them in the description for jobs. Those are also pretty famous in terms of everyone is using them, but not really everyone going to be perform all of these tests. It's just you have to know what they are. So let's talk about the unit integration and acceptance tests. If you look at my screen, you see that we have unit, we have integration, and we have acceptance. So that's how it is actually in real life. So you have to create a unit and test it. you have to integrate it with the other components, and then you need to run the acceptance, make sure that the quality is acceptable. So let's start with unit test. Unit test is not done by us. Unit test is done by developers. They have to test their small pieces of code before giving it to us. They write their unit tests for that. They run it on their local machine or their some other location that they might use. But basically, the unit test ensures that something that they give to us is not super buggy. Of course, this will be buggy because they only test the small piece of the software. When they merge it with the other pieces of the software together with the other developers, there will be some bumping heads and it will start not working right. And then when it's merging into the system, it will start breaking. So unit test is the first test that developers perform for their own pieces of code before it even gets to us. To say that they always do it, no, but they have to do it. They just don't like doing it, I would say that. But we can safely assume that they do it because most of the companies will push for these types of tests, just because if they will give it to us without proper testing, then most likely we will not even able to test normally because everything will be breaking. So that is why we want them to do the unit test. How well they do, how good is their coverage is basically no one knows. My cat came. See, she wanted to communicate. Now, next is integration test. Integration test is when you actually combine the individual units of the software, of the code, into a group of units. Basically, it's when you integrate your piece of code into the group of other pieces of code. You can call it this way. So the integration testing will be a level of software testing where individual units are combined and tested as a group, usually made by developers, sometimes by QA engineers who specify in a certain technical area. So integration testing, not always we will do, as it says here, we will have especially trained people who might do the integration test just to make sure that it's all working together. But basically, for you to understand it easy, that unit test is a small piece of code tested, while integration testing is when you combine the individual units of code and they should be working together at some point, somehow, at least something should be done. Now, if the developers only would perform the unit test and integration testing and give the software to the customer, that will be super buggy because they cannot really cover a lot of cases and they're only covering the particular amount, which is bare minimum for their particular piece of code. So that is why even though they do it, we still have a lot of work to do and we still have a lot of bugs to catch because developers are developing and they're not testers. Okay, so we don't do unit testing. No, we do not. We do not. The unit test is done by the developers always. So if you hear about the unit test, that's for them, not for us. Now she will jump on my keyboard. Okay. Any questions about unit or integration testing?
Ну, Алекса, держи карбучик, у нее вода парфрет. Алекса, выйди.
Like not, right? Okay. So then we come to acceptance testing. I think someone has the mic on. Okay. Acceptance. Acceptance test is something very, very important. Why it is important? Because that's the bare minimum that the software should meet. Now, what is the definition? So acceptance testing is level of software testing where a system is tested for acceptability. The purpose of this test is to evaluate the system compliance with the business requirements and assess whether it's acceptable for delivery. Giving you a real life example, what is acceptance criteria? Acceptance criteria is something, if it's not met, then you cannot give it to the customer. It doesn't mean that everything that customer wants to have will be working and blooming and having smooth experience, but it means that at least bare minimum we have to meet. Example, you go to the car dealership and you have in mind, you have your dream car. You say, I want to have BMW, let's say 4 Series. It should be coupe, 2 doors. It should be a sport package, and it should be let's say, I think it's leather inside everywhere. I don't know, particular color shade, something like that. So you have it in your mind. That's your acceptance criteria. You're not going to accept not something which is not matching your criteria that you have in mind. Now, you come to the dealership and you describe that you want to have this BMW, and the dealership tells you, oh yeah, we have it, and they show it to you, the car which is gray color, which is coupe, which is 2 doors, which is sport car, which has leather inside, but it's not BMW. It's, let's say, I don't know, Mercedes. Are you gonna take this car or are you gonna reject this car? Especially if you knew that you come for exactly to get the particular car, you'll reject, right? So exactly, that's because this car is not matching your acceptance criteria. If, let's say, they say, we have this car, exactly the car that you need, it's BMW, it's the same color, it's the same model, it's everything. But let's say the year will be 2020 and you came for 2021, for instance, for example. You might take it because it's the same car, and in your acceptance criteria, you did not specify that, okay, it has to be only 2021. I'm not going to take nothing which is less than that. Then you can take this car. But if you have specified in your acceptance criteria that, no, this car has to be 2021 and up, you will not take this car. So acceptance criteria is something that is set, and if it goes below, at least like it drops 1 point below, it's not shippable. The customer will reject it. They will say, take it back and fix it. So that is why we always know what is their criteria for acceptance. And it makes our lives easier, because when we test for something, we don't really need to expand ourselves and think, oh my God, what did I not test? I need to test more. I think maybe this or that. It's good to test, right? But we always short on time. And if we have the clearly defined acceptance criteria, for us, it makes lots of sense. And we just work around this acceptance criteria. We met it, very nice. We can give this product to the customer, and continuously testing for everything which is outside of this acceptance criteria, something else, something we will design, we will test. But to give it to the customer, we really need to make sure that it's matching what he wants to see. Because if we continuously giving something that he doesn't want to see, he will fire us. He will find some other company to develop this product for the customer. So that is why acceptance criteria, I love it myself because it's very clear defined and it's bare minimum that we have to meet. So we concentrate on it and we know this is what we are testing for. If we have more time, we test more. If we don't, at least we meet the acceptance criteria. Okay. Questions. Is integration testing for developers too, not for QA, right? Yeah, they might, they should do integration tests, but they not always do. They will always try to do unit. For integration, they might have tests, they might not have, but we should have someone who is dedicated to integration testing and they will test the components before it gets to the everyone else's hands. Natalia has money. Thank you guys. I had to sell my BMW, exactly the one that I listed. I had to sell it because my big family didn't fit in it. But I love the car. It was an amazing car. It was just very expensive on the repairs. A couple times I visited the shop, and after that I figured I need to sell it. And now I'm driving the cheap car. Can't wait to get on board. I need a BMW. Yeah, I know, right? But you know what? You will get the BMW, then you will have to spend so much money on repairs that I don't know. Acceptance like meeting business requirements. Acceptance is like meeting minimum requirements. They will be defined to you, so you will know what are the minimum that customer expects. But we are trying, of course, do more than that. But at least acceptance has to be done. Acceptance is bare minimum. If we ship without acceptance, we're in trouble. Okay, I can't wait to get a QA job so I can have BMW. You will have lots of BMWs. It's not something that is a problem. The problem is maintaining it, not to get it. What is the difference between acceptance and integration? That's a huge difference. It's totally different types of testing. So integration is the test when you combine the pieces of the code and you see if they work together well. And this is usually done by someone else. It's either done by dev teams or it might be a special QA engineer for integration testing. We don't do it most of the time, but acceptance testing we do, and acceptance testing is something for us to know what the customer wants to meet the criteria. Level of their acceptance is basically our criteria. If we go beyond it, it's very nice, but at least we have to deliver based on what they want to see, bare minimum. Any questions? Oh yeah, I see. Is integration testing automated or manual? It's most of the time it will be automated at some point. It should be. So is it making sure the system is accepted by the customer as per requirements, meeting the customer criteria? Yeah. So if, let's say, the customer is your own company, you don't have the external customer, let's say, but you have the company which designs the product and we have acceptance criteria for us, then it will be defined by a product owner, product manager. They will define the acceptance criteria and they will write it, so you will know what it is. If, let's say, the customer let's say we have the customer who wants the particular acceptance criteria, then they will communicate to the project manager, not the product manager, and they will write it down into the acceptance criteria, and then the customer will say, yeah, that sounds about right, that's my acceptance criteria, and then it will go to you and you will be testing against this criteria. Usually it will be, of course, less than the full functionality, but it will be clearly defined. Okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, and want this to work. That's something that you have to make sure. Is alpha and beta testing under acceptance testing? No, not really. It can be separate. We will go to that type of testing too. Could you give an example of integration testing in a real life scenario? So integration testing, guys, is when we have bunch of code components, and those code components, before they're going to be merged with the rest of the system, they need to be making sure to work together. So usually the integration QA engineer who does the integration test, he will write some kind of scripts to make sure that when we merge these pieces of code together, it can be from different layers of the application. You know, it doesn't have to be the same, it can be different ones. But at some point when they merge, they have to make sense, they have to work together. Maybe they will not be working super smoothly, but that's a different issue. But they have to be at least be able to pick up the information that they give to each other and end up with something meaningful. So integration testing will be basically to test the components of the code. When they merge together, they work. And as I said, it can be, you know, it can be a bunch of pieces of code from the same team, or it can be from the different teams, but they need to be tested at some point. That's how it is. But usually you will not really know when they do it, because it will be done before it even gets to you. So it will be done after the unit test done, then they run integration, and then after it's passing, then you will know about it because you will get new code for test. That's how it is. Is integration both for manual QA and developers? No, manual QA mostly don't do this. Developers do, or we can have special QA engineer who does integration tests. Why do a lot of jobs require some automation skills for QA engineer? Well, because, you know, we it's like wearing a few hats, because sometimes you want to automate some tasks which you don't want to do all the time. And it really does help to have automation, because when software is huge and you cannot come to work every morning and start doing everything by hand, you want to have most of the things covered with the automation, and then the rest, which is new coming to you, you want to be able to test by hand and give to automation team. So a lot of teams will have both engineers, manual and automation, but many companies want the engineer to wear multiple hats and be able to do both. The thing is that you can learn it also when you join. So many people start with the manual QAs and they learn automation at work because they pick it up. You know, it's when you are there, you're just pick it up and then you start doing for yourself, then you can expand a little bit, and then for the team, and then you become automation engineer. So it's just easier, I think. I already tried looking for manual QA, and it's very rare to find one that is manual. Well, no, there is. Well, right now, the thing is that the market got a little slow. But what we saw in our from our data is that our students still get the same amount of interviews. So to give you an idea, well, you cannot really become an automation engineer unless you know the base, which is the manual. Now, many people will learn automation on the top of it. Many people will do it by themselves, or maybe go to some classes, or maybe they will learn it at work. So at some point, half of you guys will be probably doing some automation work, maybe not in this year, not maybe in the year from now, but at some point you will. So I would say you should not be worrying about the automation job posts, because first of all, many of them are copy paste. Second of all, the manager wants to have it all. Will they get it? We don't know, because every automation engineer, they have to know the base, and they do know the base. So when they apply for automation, they actually have completed the manual test part, and they can be manual QA. That's the thing. they don't want to. That's another thing, but don't worry about it. You will find it. So if one dev is doing front end and another back end coding, is integration when they combine their code together? Yeah. Can you please explain system testing as well? Yeah, we will get to it. I got confused, integration and regression. No, they are different. Integration is something which you do inside of the system, and regression testing is something that you do when you need to retest something. So we will get to regression. We didn't cover it yet. Was I the only one that got booted out of class and couldn't get back in? I don't know. I see a lot of jobs on LinkedIn. Karen, you should send me the link. They are usually looking for that unicorn candidate. You know, the thing is, I know how that works because I'm a hiring manager myself. So when I write a job description, I want someone who does everything. Will I get it? No. So if I need particularly black box, I'll get the black box person. When I need automation, I will look for automation. So just need to be realistic, you know. The unicorn candidates, there's not a lot of them, and you know, you can teach. The thing is that, you know, manager thinks that if the person who comes for interview and they like this person, then this person can pick up. It's not something that you cannot learn. It's not the medical school, right? So if, let's say, I get a good manual QA who wants to learn automation, and there is a lot of them, they just learn it at work. They just start writing small scripts and then they pick up, and, you know, after that they learn. So not something that is impossible to do. There is a lot of jobs, so don't worry, guys. Are you hiring right now? No, I'm not. I'm not. So you are a hiring manager. Would you hire any of us? When I was hiring, I would, because I know that I teach you guys, so I know that you know what I taught you. I don't hire right now because right now I'm only for the school. I work for the school only. But when I'm back to full-time job, then I would definitely hire some of you. Is regression testing done towards the end of the sprint? No, regression can be done at any time. We'll talk about regression. What is your company name? Right now, guys, I only work for the school because I had twins born last year and they're small. So if I go for a full-time job, I'll be paying for the nanny all my salary because it's 2 of them. So that's why I work for the school only for these few years. And I will come back, and then of course I'll let you know how it goes. If a patch or bug fix is released, it's usually when regression testing happens. Yeah. I'm a twin parent too. Thank you for congratulations. Yeah, thank you. So are you a hiring manager for Careerist? I'm confused. No, we are, I mean, we can do some interviews, but not as of now. As of now, we're not hiring. I was a hiring manager for a few years before I went for maternity leave, which I'm still in. Okay, so let's keep going. I see that we don't have any more questions about these types of tests, so we will keep moving. Now, alpha and beta testing. Alpha and beta testings both are subtypes of acceptance testing. Sometimes they can be separate. I've seen them being separate, but in theory, they should be both are subtypes of acceptance testing. So let's look at this setup. When alpha and beta test, both they are subtypes of acceptance. Now, what is alpha? What is beta? Alpha testing is performed to identify all possible issues, bugs, before the product is released to end users public. It is usually done by designated testers, internal employees, and is done early on, near the end of the development phase and before beta testing. Versus beta testing is done by releasing a beta version of the software to a limited number of end users to obtain feedback of the product quality. Beta testing reduces product failure risks and provides increased product quality through customer validation. So in alpha testing, in simple words, in alpha testing, we are testing inside of the company. So everyone who is we can do it ourselves. We can have, let's say, we can expand the team and have offshore team, designated testers team in offshore to help us with beta testing. Basically, it can be employees of the company, it can be extra company that we can hire to help us out, or it can be done in a regular setup as a QA does, because we know we are in alpha and we are just working in alpha without doing particular activities saying that we are in alpha. We just know it is, right? So basically, at some point when we get some code together, we want to test it to make sure that the majority of the issues are addressed. As I said, we might not even call it alpha testing. It's just a regular testing that we do before we get to beta, because when we are in beta, we know that we're in beta. Now, beta testing is when you have some trial version of the product and you share it outside of the company to get the feedback. I'm sure all of you probably at some point of your life had some website where you can see it says beta. It could be any product, but it will somewhere on, visible, it will say beta. What it means is that you are one of the people who are testing the unfinished product, something that is still in progress. It's something that is still going in development. And why we need it is because we want to have some real life feedback before it's too late, before, let's say, we create most of the functionality, we test it, and then we give to the customer, and then customer says, I don't like it. It's something that I kind of wish it would be the other way. Now, how it can be the other way is only when we are flexible enough to make fixes on the fly. And that is only possible when we, first of all, work in Agile. We are in Agile, we deliver small pieces of software, but we're doing it continuously. And the second is when we actually have to give it to someone early on before we complete it to get the feedback. Now, example in the real life, I can give you example in the real life how we did it in the company. So when I was working for one of the companies which we built the whole SaaS product, which was the product for mobile operators. So in their mobile operator world, like T-Mobile, Sprint, wherever it is, they could go ahead and configure their plans, everything that they want to configure. They can do it in our product and then click the button and it will go to their customers, all of us. So that was the company, what we were doing. Because it's very difficult to test on everyone. Let's say you're the, Xfinity customer or Sprint or Verizon. If we configure something and send it to everyone in the network, and let's say it's something bad, to roll back from all of the customer base, all of you, me, your neighbor, everyone, it will be painful. It will be painful. That is why we only send to the test group let's say we need to send some update. All of us have iPhones or Androids. When something comes up and you need to install an update, you trust the update is good, right? But you get this update just because you trust that someone tested it. It's not gonna break the phone. So who tested it? The test group of users tested it before it gets to you. Because let's say if we test on 200 customers and we get feedback, we see how it works, then it's easier to not to give to the rest until it's stable. Now, if we give to everyone, like millions of people, and it's not working well, then we're in trouble, right? So beta testing in our case was done the way that we send the update to a particular group of customers which agreed to be beta testers, and they installed this update on their phone and they were using it for some time, like few weeks, and we were collecting the feedback, the real-time feedback. And then when we fixed everything that they reported, when we know for sure it's stable, when the performance was good, then we actually can send this update to all the customer base. So this beta testing is the real life example how we do it in, let's say, in the mobile operator world. Now, you can be a beta tester for some products, let's say games. You can be a beta tester for some softwares. It can be anything. Basically, when you're a beta tester, you are testing it after the QA department, but before it gets to the customer. So it's the test group. It's real people who give us feedback. Clear? Okay, good. Questions? I beta tested games. Yeah, so see, you know what it is. You were part of the group which does it. Is there a hierarchy to types of testing? Is there a chart where show all types of testing we need to know that is visual? Not really, Connor, you know, because we need to know about those types of tests, but they're not something that you have to learn by heart. You will do them when time comes, when your manager tells you, let's say now it's time for beta testing, we are figuring out how to do it. So they will lead you to this. The only structure that you have to follow is that first we do everything functional and then later we do everything which is not functional. But it doesn't mean that one is more important than another. It's just the way that you test it. Functionality first, non-functionality later. So alpha is done by testers and employees. Yeah, alpha is regular test that we are continuously doing, yeah. How is work partition and equivalent on the testing process? We basically just have to concentrate on the functionality and functional coverage and stability. Then during this time, you still will be doing boundary, negative, positive, performance, usability, UI, they all go together. So it's kind of, you know, when you start working, when you see how your team is jungling it, you'll understand that really they go hand by hand, they go together. It's not something like today we're doing usability, tomorrow we are doing performance. No, for performance, we will have the engineer who does it at the same time. We are going to be doing our functional with some non-functional at the same time. So it's just, you know, it's kind of the all combined. Not that we have to structure it anyhow, except that you prioritize functionality. That's pretty much it. So when a company beta test does the software to go to focus group for testing, when? Usually we have these milestones, and in milestones, it will say that, okay, now we are in alpha, then we are done at some point. It will be decided by the manager what is the alpha testing time frame. By some time frame, we have to come up with something which can be stable enough to give to beta testers. So when it's beta, we are moving to the milestone, which we'll call beta, and you will know about it because everyone will know about it. It's just, how that goes. Basically, when we have something to give to them and it's stable enough for us to share, that's when we do it. What time are we taking break? Now. Let's take a break now. We can actually even take 10 minutes today because we are on track and we cover lots of things. Do you guys want 10 minutes or you want 5? 5, 10, 10, 10, 5, 0. I see lots of 10s. Okay, let's do 10 today. Let's do 10 because it seems like today we can do it. Usually we do 5. 6:30 on my phone. So let's come back then 6:40. I'll see you guys. Especially the person who wanted to take a break, really badly wanted. So I think you already went leak. You can you can enjoy your break now. Okay, guys, I'll see you in a few. Okay, guys, welcome back. If you see something which is not secure, I suggest you don't leave any data there, especially your credit card or anything, because you might lose it. And I think I told you about it, right? I did. Okay. Okay, is everyone back? Are we still waiting for people to come back with their coffee, tea, anything? Are you guys all here? Ready? Okay, good. Here. Okay, so continuing to the topic of the testing types. Next one is end-to-end test. End-to-end testing checks whether an application flow from start to finish is behaving as expected over the full user journey. End-to-end testing is performed to identify system dependencies and to ensure that data integrity is maintained between various system and components and system. So I'll give you an example because I like giving examples, it's easier to understand. So end-to-end testing that, for example, we've done at Apple is you have to take your, let's say, computer, open your iCloud, go to your pictures library, do something with it. Let's say delete some pictures, perform some structuring, create some folders, do something on your computer. Then you take your iPhone or iPad, you go to your iCloud and you see if this actually reflected right and in timely manner. That is end-to-end journey for the user who is working with iCloud, for instance. Same can be done at Google Photos, for example, right? You have your Google Photos installed on your phone. You took a bunch of pictures and you don't have space, so you wanted to get transferred to the cloud. And if you loaded some pictures here, you should see them loading on cloud right away in a matter of like a couple minutes on your web portal, right? That will be end-to-end test. You did it here, that when the whole journey and ended up where it's supposed to end up. That's in real life how the user journey looks like. Examples. Now, in the definition, it says that it basically the end-to-end is from one point to another. You started doing something and you finished doing something. How is different from any other types of test? Because when we test, let's say we test the functionality, we can test, okay, let's create an account for the user. And we test it, it works, account works. Then the next day you will test the purchase flow. Then the next day you will test, let's say, payment methods, right? So when you're doing it in different days, it might be different code base because it's updating each time. So it's not really the one-time thing. But when you're doing the end-to-end at the same time, let's say you go to your any type of software, Amazon, you create an account from the scratch, you search for something, you place an order, you add your payment method, you place an order, to see that it actually has the order number, it generates the receipt, money was taken from your account, and well, maybe you will not have to test if it comes to your house because it's really the logistics that is not the software part of it, but you have to make sure that the software part is working. As a user, who just came and he performs a bunch of actions at the same time to get to some particular result, and this result is happening. In the case with Amazon, we will see, let's say, order is placed, order gets the order number, we get the confirmation email, and we get the delivery estimate, and that all should be right. It's actually what you ordered and what you expected. So let's say if you have Amazon Prime and you placed an order to get it faster, but you see that, well, actually it processes it as a regular, it's not Amazon Prime, and you will not get it tomorrow, you will get it in 5 days, then it's an issue, right? But if you test Amazon Prime by itself, let's say you go to Amazon and you look for something and you check that you want to see the Prime only, it will pop up, it will sort it right, and everything will be showing that it's Prime. So this test will pass, but will it pass end to end? You don't know, because you need to try it. And end to end pass if you're creating an account and you're paying for Amazon Prime, you set it up, you do it at the one chain of events, and this chain of events ends with the placed a correct order, then that's a case where you actually tested end to end. Questions? Is it easier with the examples? Because I can just give you the definition, but I think the examples are easier because it's a real life. Okay, good. Which one comes first, functional or end-to-end? Functional. We have to complete functional testing, and we have to complete all kinds of testing, because end-to-end is actually when you know system works and you just have to make sure it works. Examples help a lot. Yeah, okay, so now you got it. So everyone is clear what end-to-end. And the flow from start to finish, which is a complete user journey. And it has to be done at the same time, not on a different days, not in a different testing session, but at the same time. Then it makes a user journey. Okay? Next one. Smoke sanity regression. Okay, smoke and sanity are actually they are similar, and many people are confusing smoke and sanity, even managers. So let me start with definition, then I'll give you the clear example. So smoke testing is performed after receiving a software build to ascertain that the critical functionalities of the program are working fine. It is executed before any detailed functional or regression tests and executed on the software build. Basically, smoke test tests something that was there before, it's a core functionality, it's been there before and it's still here and it still has to work. Smoke test tests the core basic functionality, which we know should be stable, but we have to check it all the time. Sanity testing performed after receiving a software build with changes in code or functionality to ascertain that the bugs have been fixed and that no further issues have been introduced due to these changes. Simple words. If smoke test testing the core, then the sanity is testing something which was added recently. It's not yet that stable. Sanity testing, we can refer to a few builds ago. Let's say a couple weeks ago, we have a new functionality. It was just added on the top of the core functionality. And we want to make sure it still works. So that will be sanity testing versus smoke, which was working there before. It's a core functionality and it still should be there. So to differentiate, to make it easy for you, smoke testing is the core, something that was working before and will be working and should be working, versus sanity is the mostly new functionality or some changes that were added just recently, and we want to make sure that they are actually still there, they work on the top of the core functionality. Now, at some point, what you tested in sanity will become smoke testing, because when it becomes stable, it will become part of the functionality, it will move to smoke. But before it's not, when it's new and it's just, it's just deployed and it's fresh, then we put a special attention to make sure it still integrates well with the rest of the code. Clear? Clear. Okay. Smoke test like shop button working. Yeah, because if it was working a year ago, it still should be working. But if you added a new shop button, which was not there before, and the shop button, after clicking, it will redirect you to somewhere else and the new functionality starts, then it will be a sanity because it's a new functionality and we need to make sure it still works. Now, many people, as I said, even managers, they confuse it. They can say to you, okay, can you run the quick smoke? In this smoke, you will still run the sanity, part of it or fully. So that is why you need to know the difference, but most of the time they still will go together. And I've seen really good managers, like amazing managers that I've had in my life, that they confused both. They actually said, okay, run sanity, they mean smoke. Like they mean check if it's still working. So even though it's a two different types of testing and there are clear definition why they're different, even the very experienced people will still combine them, and that is why they can just say, okay, run the smoke or run the sanity, meaning run both. Okay. True smoke testing is making sure the basic core functionalities are working properly. Yeah. But the thing is that when you do your smoke testing, you will still touch some of the sanity, if not everything. So that's the truth. Now, regression. Regression you will hear, and of course you will do it. So regression testing is performed to confirm that a recent program or code change has not adversely affected existing features. Example, that new code changes have not caused side effects for the existing functionalities. It ensures that the old code still works once the new code changes are done. So in simple words, regression testing is when you testing something that got broken, it got fixed, and you need to make sure it's still working together with the other components. Example, you filed a JIRA that create an account with by using email address is not working. It's not creating an account. You filed it and it comes back to you, says now tested. Now it should be working. It was working before, something got broken, now it should be working. Check it out. So that's a regression. Regression is basically when you making sure that something that was just fixed, it changes the code. It actually didn't break anything else. So the hint in regression, the hint which is no one says, but that's how it is. If something is fixed, then something else is broken. You need to find what. If let's say create an account with the email address fixed, right? You see you can create now, it's fixed. What you need to do is that you test around it. You test around create an account functionality. You test around existing accounts that were created before, because something when it breaks and when it gets fixed, around it in this area or something which is linked to it, something which works together can be affected. And most likely the bug will be sitting not at the regression itself, because if let's say you get the ticket to check and it's not working, you just eject it back. But if it works, then it most likely will produce the bugs which are around it because the functionality was fixed, but the integration was not properly done and something else got broken. And that's how it is. So basically, in regression testing, the main point to test something that was changed, something that came to you as a fix, and make sure that something around it is still working. And that's the tricky part, because testing the straight ticket is easy. Finding what it broke is more work. Everyone clear on regression? Let's look at your questions. Windows 10 update working with previous application, regression testing. If you're testing Windows 10 operating system, then yes. If you're testing the software itself, then no. Regression testing like modifying a car. If you add an engine that is more powerful, you're making sure it doesn't break the transmission or any other parts of the car. Yeah, because it will break. I imagine a lot of regression tests happening in common. They happen all the time. Regressions you do every day. What is the difference between sanity and regression? They are different because sanity testing something that is newly added and it should be still working. In regression, you're testing that was just fixed. It was broken and it just fixed. Means the code changes were done, means something probably got broken again, but you just need to find it. And yes, that's right. Sanity focus on new functionality, but it's working functionality. While regression is making sure that the fix which came didn't break anything else. Since sanity testing is done to check the new functionality, bugs have been fixed. Therefore, it must be a subset of regression. Well, the thing is that sanity testing, you are not working with the bugs, really. In sanity, you're making sure it still works. The newly added functionality, let's say 5 builds ago, it was working, you know, it still works, and you're making sure it works. But in regression testing, it's when actually something breaks and it broke and it got fixed, then you need to check. Got it? How we know which testing type we have to do in the website or product? Well, the thing is that you will know because sometimes you're directed by your lead or manager. Sometimes they can tell you, okay, guys, now we need to run the full functional, or we need to run the smoke, or we need to run sanity. For the regression, you will know because that's what you do every day. When you get bugs coming to you, they are fixed and you test them back. That's a regression test. You still will do it. So it's not really you need to think of which testing you need to perform. Usually, if you are not told, then it will be same set. It will be functional, it will be UI, it will be user journey, it will be regression. So it kind of, you know, it comes your way. You don't even think about what it's called, to be honest. It's confusing, the sanity and regression. Guys, it's not, because the difference is that sanity, you test that something still works, but it's a newer functionality. And regression, you're making sure that something that was just fixed is actually fixed and didn't break anything else. Does it make more sense now? If a manager adds new feature to the website, what tests are we doing, smoke or sanity? Well, it's not really manager adding. It comes in a way that it was prioritized and developed. But if something new adds to the website, we are doing sanity because it's a new functionality. And at some point, when it's stable enough, it will just roll to smoke and you will just perform it as a part of smoke. Okay, while it's still new, it's sanity. Once it's becoming like more like a core functionality at some point, you know, it works and it's stable, then it's just smoke testing. Okay. Yes, that makes more sense now. Good. Let's keep moving then. Performance, load, and stress. So they are all not functional tests, but they are important. Performance testing determines the speed of a computer, network, or device. It checks the performance of the components of a system by passing different parameters in different load scenarios. Basically, performance testing, we usually will have a performance QA engineer. We had Louis at one of the companies, I still remember. Louis was a performance engineer. So what he did, he had a bunch of tools and he was measuring the performance of the application. If the application somewhere is lagging, if the application somewhere is not responding, if at some point it's showing the metrics that Louis doesn't want to see, then it's a performance bug. Now, we cannot really do much performance by hand. I mean, we can take our device and try to load the website and see, or application, and see how fast it goes, but that's pretty much it what we can do. Now, Louis, with his tools, can do much more because he sees all the graphs and everything, and he will be able to measure this performance. So for performance testing, if we really need to test something by hand, it will be only as much. But if we have the performance testing engineer, the QA engineer, he will install all his needed tools, will have a few screens, and he will be monitoring and making sure that the performance is not lagging, it's fast enough, and it's basically doing what it has to do. Okay. Okay, guys, I see that questions about the sanity and smoke. I will respond them later because we don't want to move towards something else because we are here already. Is everything clear with performance? So like we can do a performance test using Chrome DevTools or like 3GS Slow. We can do some performance with Chrome DevTools, but really it's not going to be enough. So we are not doing more much of performance testing just because we need tools for that. So as a customer, you can see if if the website is slow, but to define slow, you need some tools. You need to know what it is. So usually, as I said, the performance QA engineer is a separate type of QA. And it's interesting. Performance is interesting. It's just we need, it's a little bit different from what we do on a daily basis, but we always have performance QA in the team. Okay. Now, load testing and stress testing. Many people confuse those two. It's like sanity and smoke. Many people confuse it, but they are different. So load testing simulates the actual user load on any application or website. It checks how the application behaves during normal and high loads, and it applied when a development project nears completion. So load testing is also done by the tool. It can be Load Runner, it can be any other tool. We are not doing it because it's done by automation. So load testing is when you simulate with the tool, you simulate that appropriate amount of users, your regular users, that let's say you have 100 users on your website in a minute, you know that, and you simulate that 100 people came to the website in the same minute or second, right? You simulate it and you see how your website is reacting. Now, the stress testing is different because it determines the stability of the system when you stress it, when you put much more than it can handle. The difference here is that in load testing, you will give the amount of people that usual or maybe slightly more than, more than you expect. And in this case, what you expect from the system to do is to handle it well. How it handles it, because it will have the load balancer, and it will balance the load between different servers. So it's not everything goes to one server and that one server crashes because it cannot handle. But in load testing, it will basically distribute the load, and so all the servers taking some amount of customers and processing it, and everything is fine. We just need to make sure that in the load testing it's doing it properly, it's actually distributing, it's actually handling them. In stress, we try to stress the system. We need to put some condition that it's not expecting. Now, when it's not expecting something, it should not crush. It should still handle it. So how it handles it, it can be different ways. But in any case, it should not lose the data. It should not kill the accounts. It should not completely crush. It should be able to handle. And the difference between load and stress is pretty clear. Even though some people still confuse it. So load is something that you expect, and you expect the load of the customer be distributed evenly and handled evenly, even if you load it little more than expected. While in stress, you're actually stressing the system. And in the stress, you're making sure that system does not lose control. It does not clear the data, kills the data, crushes in front of you, or something which you don't expect. If it crashes, then it has to self-recover. And self-recover is also a very important part of the stress testing. Now, are we doing this? No, because we cannot simulate this by hand. For this, we are going to use the tools. We're going to make sure that system is stressed or loaded by using the tool, and the tool is going to basically simulate the scenarios in which we will load it so much or stress it so much that we need to see some reaction. And even if we see that the system shuts down, even if that is happening, which is not desirable, but it can, if it can shut down, that it has to keep the data safe, it has to self-recover, it has to do it the graceful way, and it has to make sure that you are safe. You as a customer are safe. Everything that you put inside is still there. It's just not able to maybe handle as of now, but the data is safe. So that's the point of stress testing. And we are not doing any of those. We are not doing because it requires special tools, and this is performance QA, and also it can be performance guy can do the load and stress too, or it can be a separate team. We need to know what it is, but we don't do it. You can guys use browser stock or anything else, but you need to do it correctly. So you need to know what the load is and what's expected, what is not. Black Friday shopping on limited item on the website. How much stress can the website take with customers? I think I told you the story how we have my friend worked at Apple at the Apple store. The Apple Store team, they expected new iPhone to come, and the iPhone should be available at midnight of the particular date. They were testing, then iPhone got released. So many people tried to place an order that the website crashed, Apple Store crashed. And the next day, the whole QA department, together with their QA manager, was laid off. I mean, fired. Because they didn't do the appropriate performance load and test. Well, maybe they didn't expect so many people, but usually data is available. Stress testing is like the military testing new planes, making sure it can perform how it was built and what happens when it doesn't perform as designed. Probably. Can I get assistance on the previous homework? Not from me, but from the customer service you can. Is load testing also, did the website actually load and work in addition to how many users it can handle? Well, in load testing, you really, well, the load is going to, if it's loading, it's a functionality. So it's loads or not, it's loading or not. How fast it's loading, it's a performance. And how many people it can handle at the same time, it's a load. And how many people it can handle when we don't expect it, that's a stress. Okay? Okay, good. Now, next. Oh, software development lifecycle. I think you had class on software development lifecycle, did you? Yes, okay. So I think there are some examples that you can look through, but I think this is something just to refresh your memory. We're not gonna go through it now because you had it, so you know this one. Now, A/B testing. So in A/B testing, we basically, let me give you the definition first, and then I will explain it to you. A/B testing is the act of running a simultaneous experiment between two or more pages to see which performs on or convert the best. Despite the name A/B testing, the experiment can be conducted with as many pages as desired. This is not a type of QA testing, but an approach taken by product team. So why we are not really doing it is because for us, it doesn't matter how many conversions we get. We are not in marketing, we are not in sales, right? But A/B testing will be just having two prototypes of two products and to see, give one to one testing group and another to another testing group and see who converts better. So it's more like a marketing thing, just to see, okay, this page is better, people like it better, it's easy to navigate. While the other page maybe is not bringing so many leads because it's kind of more difficult to navigate, that maybe it's difficult to read and stuff like that. So in A/B testing, we're really comparing two prototypes and giving the chance for people to pick the one that they like more, and then we'll just go with that one. What's in there for us? Nothing really. We don't really care. We testing page A, page B, page C, we don't care. We will test for all the same things, for functionality, for UI, for user-friendly, for regressions. And then we'll just, we'll have those two pages wherever the marketing decides to go with. We don't really care. We know they're both functional because we tested them. Okay. Now, we learned that waterfall is a dinosaur method. This was like the cell testing we did at Netflix. Yeah, so waterfall is a little bit dinosaur because it's so not flexible that eventually the product that we release might not make sense in the current market. So yeah, in waterfall, we also tested, we were working on waterfall at Apple 12 years ago. And before everyone transferred to Agile, of course, many companies lost a bunch of money because they released something that is not needed. So that was waterfall, yeah. It's like Netflix and Hulu. Which one is better of an interface? Yeah, but it's I believe it's a different companies, right? So we are not going to be testing both. So if the company wants to convert, they will make two prototypes of the website and see which one is better, but it's for the same company. Can I ask if end-to-end testing is functional or non-functional testing? End-to-end is all. End-to-end, most of it, it's functional because you want to make sure that functionally it's right. But when you test end-to-end, you will bump on something which is non-functional. Let's say you are testing some user journey from end to end, and you understand that this journey is super tough to follow. It's kind of like tiring and you don't like it. So the JIRA that you will file will not be functional. It will be the user experience JIRA, saying that functionally it will work, but by the time people complete this journey, they will hate us and they will not come back again. So so that is end-to-end, is you checking the functionality and all the components or components of this functionality, which is functionally working. But again, saying that it's working and not considering that there are other factors, it's wrong, because people will complain. Make sense? Fun fact, not everyone gets the same version of Netflix from the server to client. Maybe because you're in a test group and you don't know about it. Okay, next one. Interview questions. We still have a few minutes to look at it. What kinds of testing do you perform? So when you ask this question, that is very broad question and what they want to see if you know the terminology. So in this case, of course, you will say that I perform functional and non-functional. In functional, I check for the functionality which I want to make sure works according to the requirements. In non-functional, I test other components such as user experience, user interface, usability, performance, because yes, for performance you will need tool, but to see if the site or application is loading, you don't need a tool, right? You have your eyes. So functional and non-functional, you both of them you will perform, but you will give the priority to the functional, and then once functional is stable, you will test non-functional, but they all are equally important. What is hot fix? Well, hot fix is something that is done really quickly and unplanned. Why it's unplanned? Because sometimes we miss something and we deploy to production, which means customer website, and then something doesn't work. Whose issue is that? It might be QA missed something, it might be set up on production that is different from QA environment and we just couldn't see it. It could be anything. It can be gap in our testing. It can be anything. The problem is that we need to put a patch hot fix. It can be patch, it can be hot fix, but what it is, it's a quick fix, which is not planned, but that is found on production website, and we need to fix it as fast as possible. So we file JIRA, it goes to developers as a first priority. They work on it before we even like prioritize anything else. They quickly put some hot fix together. It really can be not a good solution, but it will work or mask the problem. We will quickly test it, we will quickly deploy it to the customer, and that's a hot fix. Sometimes even hot fix can be done on production itself by masking something or turning something off or patching something. That's not a good idea because it will still break, but sometimes before we actually deploy the real fix, we might want to do it on production, just trying to kind of make it look better. Okay. Hotfix is like emergency fix problem in the website application. Yeah. Something which we did not plan to have, did not plan to deploy to the customer, but we have to because it appears that it's really an issue and we have to address it. Is hotfix requested in JIRA or directly from management? We have to have the JIRA either way. Sometimes we write JIRA after we fix it because they will be fixing it and you're still writing Jira because everyone knows about it. But the normal process is that we write a Jira, it goes to developers, it prioritized in front of everything else that they were doing before. They fix it, you test it quickly, and you send it to prod. That's a hotfix. Basically, hotfix is something unplanned. F-up happen, and you have to really address it like super fast. You're not going home until you deploy it. Okay? It's requested through Jira, but everyone knows about it. Now, there is also a thing like rollback and reward. This is happening at the same time. So you deployed something to production to the customer, which is bad. It's not working. And it's not working to the point that to fix it, we need time. We cannot hot fix it. We cannot patch it. We have to revert. We have to roll back. Now, this process is painful. It's very expensive in terms of resources. It's time consuming and it's very hard to do. It's not easy. To deploy in is easy. To pull it back is not. So that's why the rollback or revert can happen, but you will get a lot of hard words from everyone because they will say that QA fault. I've had rollbacks in my career probably a couple times, not that much because we're trying not to roll back. If we already give something to the customer and it's completely screwed up, and we understand that hot fix is not going to be fast, and we cannot patch it, we cannot mask it, we cannot quickly do something on production itself, and the only way to get out is roll back, then we have to do it. Then DevOps, first they will hate you, they will tell you that you are like not a good person, and then they will start the rollback. When they are doing the rollback, you are sitting at work because you have to make sure that it went smoothly, and then they will need to do some testing too. So to make sure that they roll back right and the production is still stable. So usually if they're rolling back, then you are sitting also and hearing bunch of abuse from the DevOps team. But they will eventually roll back and you will test it, but you want to make sure that it's not going to happen again. Next one, what would you do if there is no documentation requirements? How would you test? Well, first of all, of course, you would have to understand what the product does. So if there is no requirements, there is no documentation, nothing, then you would have to do your best to collect the information as much as you can. You will have meetings, you will talk to developers, you will talk to PM, product manager, you will talk to everyone who can give you at least some information on it. And before you can collect it, you can do your best guess to put that testing coverage together, because something can be obvious. Let's say it's Amazon, right? Amazon, of course, has documentation, but if it doesn't, then you understand it should be doing something which customer will do. So if you are trying to pretend as a customer who never read documentation, then you only will test the customer side as you see it, customer side as you see it. But of course, you will do your best to collect all the documentation that you can. You will talk to people and you'll try to understand at least the core functionality. Yes, it's exploratory testing, but of course, exploratory testing is not enough to really test the full coverage. So while you'll be doing exploratory testing and that testing from the user perspective, you still have to try to collect all the documents and talk to people and see if at least you can get something. Questions? We still have 5 minutes. We had to roll back a version of Netflix that was crashing PlayStation 4s. Yeah, so see, it was painful, and I know it is. It is painful. How often does rollback happen? Hopefully never. But if it happens, it's not often. If it happens too often, there is a problem with the testing. It should not happen. I mean, that's not the ideal situation. That's actually pretty screwed up situation when we have to roll back. As I said, in my 12 years of experience, we roll back probably a couple times. And one of these times I was totally inexperienced. It was my second job. And at my other time, I was experienced, but we had this system which was very, very complex. So at some point, we just were not able to not to roll back. Who is responsible for giving me the information about testing? Well, you will have QA lead and QA manager. They will guide you what you need to do. But lots of times you determine yourself. You just figure out, because you hear the meetings, you see your tasks which are coming to you. So you'll figure out it yourself. During the internship, will we get trained, or will they expect us to jump right in? No, you will get help, because you will get guided of what to do, and you will perform the tasks. What are the key challenges that you face while performing regression testing? The most challenge in regression is basically one of the things. It's easy to test something that is fixed, but then you have to find what got broken. So testing just to fix and regress it and think that you're done is not going to be enough. The challenge is to find what did it break. So you really need to test around this area, around this code, to see what's actually got broken, because you know it will. Can we be fired for causing a rollback? A rollback can happen. It's not that you can get fired for causing a rollback. You can get fired for anything really without rollback too, because that's how it is. The thing is that if rollbacks happen regularly because of you, then yes. If the rollback happened once in 10 years and you have a good explanation why, then it's not going to cause you any problem. But again, as I said, the Apple could get rid of the whole department just because they didn't test the load testing properly, the stress. If there is no PRD, do you want to not only test the cases of a typical customer, but also the customer who is the husband that had his 6-year-old get a hold of the phone and just hit all kinds of buttons? The more tests you do, the better. Can we have your email? My email is on my LinkedIn. So you can go on my LinkedIn and add yourself there, and you can always message me there. It's faster, because my email I have, and I think it's somewhere in the in our presentations, but you don't need it. It's easier for you to just go on LinkedIn and add me there and text me there. I just want to hear rollback in prices at Walmart. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's good idea. Are you testing the entire website for regression testing to look for other things that might break, or are you testing just that part of the website that is related to the change in the code? Mostly, I would test something that is related to this code. So let's say if you regress, create an account, then I would test the whole flow for create an account around it. I will not test, let's say, place an order, because it's not related, right? But if the fix was in the area of creating an account, I would test around it. I would try to perform as many tests around this area as I can, because I know there is something broken. Is that the point? Is, are you going to find it right now, or are you going to find it in, let's say, a couple of weeks when you actually forgot that something was broken? Now, many times, and I've seen this in my practice, is that when people do regression, especially the new QAs, they don't consider the fact that if something is fixed, that something is broken, and they don't test around it. And then when they say, okay, build is good, we tested everything, we tested all the fixes, is good. You deploy it, let's say, to the customer, and then the issue starting to pop up. And when you have the issue starting to pop up, you realize, okay, let me go back and think, where did I have the fixes related possibly to this flaw? And then you think, oh yeah, that was that bug that I was testing, it was fixed, but I didn't really test around it. And that brought me to this bug that appeared right now. So many people don't think to test around it. They just fix that, they close the Jira, and that's it. But then if that happens, it can happen. If that happens, then you have to think, okay, what was the fix a couple weeks ago in this area? Oh yeah, that was this one. So that's probably related. And you go to this Jira and you see what was fixed, and you test around it, and you find the exact bug that was sitting there and you didn't see because you didn't test around it. So this is very, very common thing. I was born to run regression. Can you give us a little overview as to when to do smoke, sanity, and regression in specific sprint? Well, in every time you get a new code, you will do all three possibly. So if your code, if new build comes every morning, then pretty much every day you will do. The good thing is that most of the time, the automation will be in place for this, at least for the smoke. For sanity, it might be there or might be not, but at least for smoke, it will be there. So the automation guys will turn the automation and they will sit and have coffee, and you will just be validating some of the sanity and the regression fixes that come to you. So in the sprint, it really, anytime when you have new code or new fixes. So you can have it every day, you can have it 3 times per week. So it's not really determined on the sprint, it's just how our daily life looks like. They just assume that everything is working, but they haven't tested everything related to that change in code. Yeah, that's the thing. So you, as a QA engineer, always remember that there was a fix in this area. And if something you suspect can be related, it's easy to go to this bug ticket and say, okay, yeah, that was this one, that was the fix, and that fixed this, and probably that's what broke this. And it gives you the good hint of where to navigate from there and how to test it. So that's how we do it. If, let's say, we didn't test it well around, or maybe we didn't test at all around, and then something comes up, we hear something in our mind right away. Oh yeah, that was that fixed, that probably that's what brought it, and you just dive back and you test it. That's how you do it. It will come with some practice. Maybe, you know, you will bump into this issue a couple times and then you will remember about testing around it. But as I said, not many people test around it. That's the problem, and that's why we get bugs coming to us. So just be the QA that tests around it very well. Okay, you're welcome. Any more questions? If not, then you're welcome, Alexander. You're welcome. Things can be linked and related in regression. When something is fixed, it might lead to a bug. One thing leads to another. Yeah, always remember, if something is fixed, something is broken. What is your cat name? This one I don't know. Her name is all the bad names that I know. I call her because she's little retarded. You know, she's. I have a few cats, but mostly their names are inappropriate, so I cannot say it out loud. But I post it in my my social media, so everyone knows my cat's name. Yeah, I know it's funny. Sabaka. No, Sabaka is a dog, and this is a cat. So cat is different, but this one is not her name. Her name is bad one. Kit. Yeah, it is. El gato. Yeah. but this is too appropriate for them. I usually call them the bad names. At least when I call them outside, then my neighbors know. And I had one cat, her name was inappropriate, like the woman who is doing bad things. So when I was calling her in the neighborhood, everyone knew that I was looking for her, and everyone said, "Oh yeah, I saw her there. She was there. She was sitting on the fence," and it was so. So I was shy at some point, and I decided to give her a good name when I called her. But at home, she was still the same. So this one is almost the same. Доброй ночи. Thank you, guys. Good night to you too. Yes, in Ukrainian we say добраніч. Okay, guys, have a good night. It was great seeing you all. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your activity and questions. I will see you at some point. I hope I will see you soon. I don't know if we still have classes together, but I hope we do. If not, then add me on LinkedIn. And if you need anything, like you have any questions that you forgot to ask, you can always catch me there. So I am active on LinkedIn, and you can always get there. Okay, guys, good night. It was great seeing you all today. Have a nice evening.